Alright, so I'm going to go over your 3.2 review, CBQ 3.2. Okay, so this one's going to be over what we've done the past week and a half on exponential functions. Okay, so let's look at number 1. The number of stores opened by a coffee company can be modeled by the exponential function graph on the grid, where x is the number of years since 1992. Based on the graph, which statement appears to be true? So we got to go through all of our statements. So the first one says the coffee company had opened 400 stores by the end of 1992. So, yeah, that's true, kind of. Let's look at B. The coffee company opened 200 stores in 1 year. So after the first year, if we started at 400, and then after 1 year it says we grew 200, where should it be?
600.
600, right? Is it there?
No.
So that means B is incorrect. Every year, the number of stores the coffee company opened increased by 100. So that means it starts at 400. After 1 year, it should be at what?
500.
And then a year later?
600.
And then a year later?
700.
And then a year later?
800.
Then a year later?
900.
And then?
1000.
Which is 1,000, right? So that's a linear function, right? Because each year it's going up by the same. Is that true?
Yes.
To what-
No. Like your question was true, but
Okay, yeah, but is the
answer's
graph,
not.
is that what's happening to the graph?
No.
no.
No, so C is incorrect. Alright, since 1992, the coffee company has opened 250 stores each year.
No.
How do you know that's false?
Because it's not going up by 50. Oh yeah, it's going by 100.
So if it's going up by 250 each year, if it starts at 400, then it should be at 650 after 1 year?
Yeah. No, that's not true. No.
No.
And then at, what, at a 900?
That's true.
No, that's 200. Right?
So what do you do?
I don't
Okay,
know.
the answer's wrong. The answer's wrong.
Yeah,
No, yeah, it'd be 1,000. So it'd be something like this. It'd still be a linear function. If you see each year and it's a number, if it's a percent, that's different. Percentages and numbers are different, right? If you see just a number without a percent and it says each year, then that's wrong. But remember, we were dealing by percentages, right? That's what we've been dealing with this past week. If you see a percentage, then that would be true. Okay? Because it would be an increase by, if it says it increased by 50%, that means it's 1.5, right? So that means 400 would become 550, and then 550 would become, I don't feel like doing the math right now, but yeah. So this one's incorrect, because it's not a percentage. So it'd be A. Okay, so if you see a percentage, it would be true. But if you see, if it's not a percentage, then it's not true. Okay. All right, let's look at number 2. The table contains some points on the graph of an exponential function. Based on the table, which function represents the same relationship? So remember, when we get a table, what are we supposed to do?
What is table?
Put it in Desmos. You click add and then table. Right? You add a table. And you copy the table. So it would be 0, 1. One more. Alright then. 0, 1, 2,
You
3.
did it when you hit enter.
Oh yeah, that's right. Or 5. And then you would copy the 1,000, then 1,049, then 1,100, and so on, right? So once you plug that in, you're supposed to type y1 squiggly line, AB raised to the power of x1, right? You're supposed to click log mode as well. Click log mode, right? And then you choose one of these answers, okay? Also, if you look at the table, where does it start? Where does the table start? And then, but what's the y value? 1,000, right? So where should my function start? Where should the equation start? With 1,000, right? So then it has to be between, actually B is the only answer. That starts with 1,000.
That's easy. But what the?
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Because whatever our equation starts with, that's the initial value. Remember, that's our A. That's our A, and AB raised to the X. Okay? Let's go to 3. The graph of an exponential function is shown on the grid. Based on the graph, which statement about the function is true? So, the range is a set of all real numbers less than 0. So let's see what that is. So range is what?
Y.
Good. Range is Y. So you should think radix. Range is Y, domain is X. So the range is a set of all real numbers less than 0. So all the Y values less than 0 would be this. Okay. Then it says the range is a set of all real numbers greater than -4. So -4 is right here. So that would be that. Then it says the domain is the set of all real numbers greater than 0. So domain is X. So that would be this that they're talking about.
Greater than 0?
Greater than 0.
X.
And then the domain is the set of all real numbers less than -4. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So all over here. Okay. Write down which one you think is correct. Don't yell it out. Okay.
Well,
Which one looks true? Where does the whole graph fit in? Does it fit in just the pink one? Does it fit in just the blue one? Does it fit in the yellow one or the orange one? Which one does it completely fit in?
which one's that one? The one that.
Okay. Let's do this.
Okay. You're so smart.
Okay. So let's look at number 4. Go ahead and do that, and let's do number 4. So the exponential function modeled below represents the number of square kilometers of land occupied by cane toads X years after this animal was first introduced into Australia. So they give you the table and the graph. Based on the data, which exponential equation can be used to model this information? Round to the nearest 100. So, again, this one. All you have to do is add a table, right? And then type y1, squiggly line, ab raised to the x1 power. Right? So do that real quick. Another way to look at it is by looking at your answer choices, right? For sure, it should start with 36,500. So that would be these. So you can eliminate that, and then you have a growing function. It's an exponential growth. So inside your parentheses should be positive. Okay. So let's look at number 5. The population of a town is decreasing at a rate of 3.5% per year. The population in the town was originally 28,000 in the year 2000. Which function models the population in the town after X years? Okay. So what's my initial value?
28,000.
28,000, right? So if I have y equals a times b to the x,
You can eliminate.
it has to, if 28,000 is my initial, that means that's what I start with my function. So for sure, b and a are wrong. So then it's between c and d. And then don't forget, they're talking about decreasing. Right? Decreasing. Okay, so figure that out. Alright, let's go to number 6.
You said it was decreasing, right?
Yeah, it's decreasing. Okay, so a toy is made up of cylindrical rings stacked on a base as shown in the diagram. The diameter of ring 1 is 68% of the diameter of the ring directly below it. The diameter of the base is 8 inches. Which function can be used to find the diameter in inches of ring R, where R is in between 1 and 7? Okay, so what is my initial value? What does it start with? 8, right? The diameter of the base is 8 inches, right? So this is where I'm starting and I'm going up, right? We're starting at 0, then going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for sure, it has to start with 8. And R is the ring number. That means you can eliminate A and B again, right? So then between C and D, I mean, looking at C and D, you should already be able to eliminate one of those answers because, I mean, one of the functions is what we've been dealing with. The other one is missing something that we've been dealing with this past week, right?
Wait.
Okay. So let's look at number, also if you look at the rings, the diameter, right? The diameter is the length from here to here, right? This is decreasing. It's getting smaller. The length between the rings is getting smaller. So it's an exponential decay. Alright, let's look at number 7. The population of Center City is modeled by exponential function f, where x is the number of years after the year 2015. The graph of f is shown on the grid. Which inequality best represents the domain of f in this situation? Okay, so redox, right? Anytime you see a range or domain question, you have to think redox. Range is y, domain is x.
Yes.
If they're talking about domain, which two answer choices can I eliminate?
B and D.
B and D, right? So now it's between A and C. What do you notice about the graph?
It's linear. Going up.
That's not linear. That's exponential.
There you go. That. Yes.
Why is it not C?
It's not C because it's not greater than C. Wait, why is there two
What does
signs?
what does C mean?
That it's something bigger than X.
It's big. It's big. So it's basically saying my left wall is at 0, right? Remember we did the walls,
Yeah.
and then what is it saying? The right wall is at 110, right?
Yeah.
Meaning it would only be in between here. But what is the graph telling us?
It's gonna keep going.
The arrow tells me it's going to keep going, right? So this means no matter what, it's going to keep on going.
It's never gonna stop.
It's never gonna stop. So this wall is not true. That's false.
Also,
So then it would be A.
what? That's crazy.
And also think about, what did I say exponential functions? What is the domain? It's always gonna be what?
0.
Domain. Exponential function. Remember y'all did it when the sub was out?
Yeah.
The domain was one of the ones that y'all always, like, just, you could write from the beginning. What was it called? What was the domain for exponential functions?
Oh, all real numbers.
All real numbers, right?
Oh, that's what you meant.
But I said there's two cases where it's not true. Is when we have endpoints and when it's in the real world. When it's in the real world, there's no such thing as negative numbers, right? In the real world,
No, there is.
there's no such thing as a negative year. Okay?
Oh.
There's no such thing as a negative year. Okay?
Okay.
So it has, if all real numbers means negative infinity to positive infinity, right? But since I'm dealing with years, I can't have any negative years. So I'm going to start at 0, but I'm still going to go to infinity. Right? Time is always going to go by. That make sense? It's not going to stop after 110 years. Okay? So let's look at number 8. Which statement about the graph of y equals 1/3 times 2/3 raised to the x is not true? Not true. So yes, you would type that into Desmos. You have to type that into Desmos and type it exactly how you see it. So if you graph it, it should look like this. Y equals 1 divided by 3. Come on.
Mister, I can't see the other numbers.
Parentheses.
In the 2/3?
Yeah, it's 2/3.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Raised to the x.
Okay, we do it.
Okay. So then, a vertical asymptote, we don't deal with that in Algebra 1. Okay, so there's no vertical asymptotes. So, A, we deal with the horizontal, right? Horizontal asymptotes.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, that's the one where it's like this.
Oh.
Why is it doing this? Your vertical, horizontal asymptote is the one, if you have a graph, it's like this. The horizontal asymptote is this line, remember?
Oh, okay.
Where it's approaching, but it's never going to cross.
Oh.
A vertical asymptote would be something like this. Okay, but we don't deal with those here. Okay, it's approaching this way, up and down, but we don't deal with that. So you would have to do, you have to check which one is not true between B, C, and D. I mean, never mind. It's A.
What? Scott, you're lying.
Yeah, because we're talking about not true.
Man, ESA, it is not 8. It is not 8. Man, that's too solid to me.
So if you look at the graph,
Go back to
that's where it crosses the y-intercept. That's where it crosses the y-axis, right?
Yeah.
0.333, that's 1/3, remember? You're supposed to remember that one, 1/3, so this is true. So that means it's wrong. The graph has an asymptote as y equals 0, right? It's approaching at 0, right here. You keep going, it's there at 0. So this is true, which means it's wrong. And then the graph decreases from left to right.
Yeah.
This is your left, this is your right. So it's
Oh,
decreasing.
Not true. No true. No true.
So this is true, meaning it's wrong. So A is the correct answer because we
So
don't deal with
we
machines.
did. So. Oh, never mind.
Make sense? Okay, so the student used f of x equals 12,000 times 1.06 to the x power to show how the tuition at a college will increase over time. What does the 12,000 represent? Don't yell it out. You should know what it is.
What does the 12?
What does the 12,000 represent? You should be able to do number 9. Don't forget your ABCs. Right? Okay. Let's look at number 10. The number of ants in an ant farm triples every month. Which function can be used to find the number of ants present at the end of m months in the ant farm if there were initial 100 ants? 10 just answered your question for number 9. So 100 ants. That's your initial value, right? So what should your function start with?
100. So it'll be A, C, or yeah, it's A or C.
So then it's A or C. B and D are incorrect. And you should be able to choose which one's correct from here.
Oh, it's.
Okay, write the first 4 terms of the sequence whose general term is given by t sub n equals 3 times negative 2 raised to the n minus 1. Okay, so remember we were doing the sequences? So, yes, that was last Monday. Remember we did the ratio? No? Okay. So, we had our equation Tn, well it really was An, A sub n, where it was A sub n equals A1 times r raised to the n minus 1, right? Where this was your starting value and this was the ratio. Remember that? Y'all don't remember that? Where they would give us a number and then a second number and then a third number, right? And then we had to divide this one divided by this one to see what the ratio was, right? Remember? And then they told us, okay, go backwards. We give you the starting, we'll give you the ratio, figure out the rest of the sequence. That's what they want us to do here. So the negative 2 is the ratio, meaning my first one is 3, right? Then it's going to be 3 times negative 2. Remember, you multiply to go forward, right? When we were going backwards to figure out the ratio, we were dividing. But then we figured it out and we went forward to get our ratio.
Okay, I get you.
So 3 times negative 2, negative 6. So then that means my next number should be negative 6.
So it's either, yeah.
So B is incorrect. And then
You multiply negative 6 times
negative 2,
2.
which is what?
12.
So that means D. Well, D was wrong because it didn't start with 3. Oh, and C is wrong. So it's
What
8.
the? Bro, we're so fun. Mister, I think we should put me in on the SBQ.
Oh yeah. Oh no, never mind. I don't want to be there. Yeah, I don't want to be there.
Does that make sense? You remember that? Right? I wonder if we type it into decimals, what will happen. Let's see. Y equals 3 times negative 2 raised to the power of x minus 1? No. X minus 1.
What's up with the
So if we click the settings and convert it to a table, it gives us the answers. So that means my first term is 3, my second term is negative 6, my third term is 12, my fourth term is negative 24.
Wait, what? We can do that?
Yeah. So if you type this in,
Wait.
if you type this into decimals, the only thing is when you type it in, your exponent has to be in parentheses for x minus 1. Because
Wait,
if
I have a question.
what's up?
Do we need to add the t sub m?
No. All you have to do, I'll show you how I did it. So I did y equals 3, right? So instead of the t sub n, I changed that to y, and then the n is going to change to x.
Okay.
So 3 parentheses negative 2 raised to the power. Now if I do x minus 1, it's not going to let me,
No, okay.
right? So you have to put it in parentheses.
Parentheses x minus 1.
X minus 1. And then from there, what are you supposed to do?
Click settings. Settings.
And then convert to a table, right?
What?
Smart.
And so this is the term number, right? So the first term is 3, second is negative 6, and so on. Okay? Man, this test is going to be super easy.
Because I wanted decimal and common sense.
Okay, so the graph of an exponential function is shown on the grid. What is the asymptote for this graph? Remember, what does the asymptote have to be? But the range is y is greater than, right? What is the asymptote? Y is equal to, right? So the range of an exponential was y is greater than, and if we had an equation, it was y is greater than whatever was adding or subtracting, right? And if there was nothing adding or subtracting, then it was 0. Remember that? But then the asymptote, remember on that worksheet, was the same as the range. The only difference was that it was y equals, right? So that means B is incorrect.
So right is.
Okay, so then if you need to graph these, put these in decimals. Y equals 9 would be this line right here.
Yeah, because I'm telling you this.
Okay, then y equals 5 would be this one.
And it's wrong.
And then y equals 4 would be this one right there. Okay? So this should be pretty straightforward. Alright, let's look at number 13. There were 685 games sold at an electronics store in October. Since then, game sales at this store have increased at a rate of 6.25% per month. At this rate, which function can be used to determine the monthly game sales M months after October? So, what's my initial value?
Yeah.
685. So my equation should start with 685.
So B is wrong.
So B is incorrect.
Yes. And it's a exponential growth.
Exponential growth,
So
right?
A is wrong and D, so the answer is.
Right? If it's a growth, you have to do 1 plus R. What's my R?
The 6.25.
6.25%,
Yeah.
which is what as a decimal?
0.0625.
Alright? So you should be able to figure that out from there. Okay? So let's look at the last one. A table of values for the exponential function f is shown below. Which situation could describe this function? Okay, so you have to read through, right? You can also add a table, right? Type it in and put y1, squiggly line, ab raised to the x1. There's two of them that are completely wrong that I talked about earlier. Which ones are they?
Oh, A and D.
A and D, right? Because
Yeah.
why not? Why are those wrong?
Because those would be an
exponential growth, the numbers would all be the same, going up by the same.
What were you saying? What you were saying, I think, was going to be right. No? What did I talk about earlier?
If it would percent.
Percent, right? Exponential functions have to be percentages, growth of a percent, not a number per year. Because if it's growing $82 per year, that means it would go to from 380, then plus 82, then another plus 82, and then right, and that's not going like that. So A and D are wrong. Also, the table. What's happening to the table?
It's increasing.
It's increasing, right?
Yeah.
Decreases is incorrect.
Also, it's B?
Yeah. Okay. This test should be pretty easy. There should be the same amount of people up there as last time, right? Right. Okay. So
I think you're getting a new member.
all right. Once you're done with this, I want you to go on to Schoology and submit your answers.
Oh, MG. I turned on my computer.
Pues, ¿quién te manda?
Ah.
And then we can turn in that pair from yesterday. We can turn in that pair from yesterday.
Yes, you have to do that too.
Because I don't want to be having a 70 hood. I was gonna have an editor.
Okay, so if you go to courses, my course, it should be in the reviews folder, and it's going to be CBQ 3.2 review. Okay, actually, some of you might not have it yet. Hold on, I'm going. No, y'all don't have to watch it, because I'm still recording it. So, are you gonna watch something that I haven't finished recording? You already saw it live. What do you mean? Okay, so CBQ 3.2 review. This is the video that you're watching right now. This is where you're gonna put your answers. All right. Any questions? Yeah. Okay.